Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is David Brooks, the Cadillac Counselor, coming at you to talk to you today about the Board of Education. Make sure that you subscribe. Love your comments. Always give me any type of feedback that you want to give us. But today we are going to be talking to one of the seven. With Dean Rose, I watched him out there campaigning very hard, and I don't want to waste your time, so I'll allow him to introduce
Hey,
himself.
thanks, David. I think all seven people would really appreciate the opportunity to share our messages with folks, and we just appreciate it. I agree 100%. The Board of Education race, personally, of course, I'm running for the position, but I think it's the most important race on the ballot. It helps guide our young people. It's the future of our country. I think because it gets pushed down at the bottom of the ballot, it often gets ignored. But I appreciate folks like yourself that are trying to bring a spotlight onto the Board of Education in the race and the issues that our families and our children and our teachers and staff, our community is facing. So I'm Dean Rose, 24-year resident this month, Frederick County. I'm a West Virginia native, Southern West Virginia. If you can still pick up a little bit on the accent, I've still got it. So I'm from Southern West Virginia. But my wife and I moved here 24 years ago. We have two children that both attended Frederick County Public Schools, K through 12. But that's something I was able to experience, is having two children go all the way through the system here in FCPS. I've also been very involved in our community. I enjoy volunteering, coaching, mentoring young people. I spent 13 years coaching varsity basketball here in FCPS at 4 years at Urbana and 9 years at Oakdale.
How do you feel about you running as a nonpartisan race with all of the pressures of the both sides, the Democrat and the Republican Party, having a lot of influence on voting?
I actually have a lot of thoughts about that, a lot of feelings about that. It's so interesting because I ran 2 years ago and wasn't fortunate enough to be elected. And it's interesting how much it changed in only 2 years, our political climate. I don't know if the pandemic or coming out of the pandemic and everything nationally that's happened, but it wasn't so partisan 2 years ago. I look at it like kids don't have a party. And ultimately, that's why we're here. We're here for the betterment of our schools and our kids. And if we put them first above everything else, above all the politics, and even sometimes above our own personal feelings, because we have 2 ears and we got to use them, and so we have to listen. And I guess that's the one positive that's kind of come out of all this. It has certainly motivated a lot of families and a lot of parents to get involved and pay more attention.
Just say it happened, and you were the only one that won out of your slate, and you were on the board with the 3 indoctrination slate. How would you go about navigating that?
I've been in the corporate world for 37 years, and we sit in boardrooms every day, and there are any number of voices in there that think totally different from a business perspective than you might. Okay. Particularly, I have to caution myself sometimes. The longer we live, sometimes we get more firm in our beliefs. And so I think that's why it's so important to, I love what you're doing with being an adjunct professor, and that you have to continue to educate yourself. You have to continue to be open to what's going on out there. And I'm very fortunate through some of my work that I'm exposed to a lot of different mindsets and a lot of different thinking. And I think that's important. So I think it's important that, that's why there are 7 voices. That's why there are 7 seats on the Board of Education, because it's not an autocracy. It's a democracy. So we would have to learn to work together. we would all have to come to a common agreement, a common goal. Number one is students. Nothing else matters. And that's the question I'm always going to ask. I'm always going to ask every policy that comes before me, how does this benefit our students? Because if you can answer that question, and that question is an affirmative, that this is going to benefit students, then that's something we need to look hard at. Would it be a challenge? Absolutely. Sure. Let's not ignore it. Yeah. But everybody deserves to have their voice heard. And I think I could work with anyone.
I'm going to ask you some questions that my viewers have posed that they want to ask you. What is your understanding of CRT and that's critical race theory? And how do you think it fits into education?
This has become, I think, total lack of communication here. It's not misinformation, it's miscommunication. I mean, if we're really specific about critical race theory was a college, it's actually a law school level curriculum that's taught in the second year of law school or greater, that talks about systemic racism and its effect on our criminal justice system. I mean, that's where it started. Then that term has been used to talk about our discussions of, and this is, again, everyone has their own opinion and beliefs about this, but as we started examining our history of our country more closely, that term began to be applied toward our discussions about slavery and the Civil War and the forming of our country, the Constitution. I mean, and then slowly that term, critical race theory, slid over as an umbrella on top of these discussions. And in my opinion, in order to demonize and to try to quiet these necessary discussions that we have to have. The division of students based on race, that's just not going. I have not seen any proof of any curriculum within our school system that talks about anyone being over another person and applying that in our schools within our curriculum. I haven't seen one piece of evidence that that's going on. Are we addressing some gaps in our history? Are we trying to address those historical issues sooner in a child's education so that they're more comfortable with those discussions? I think that's what's important, is the sooner we start having these discussions, the more comfortable you are as you go through your academic career. The FCPS website is like a maze. And we've got to do a better job of making it really easy for a third grade parent to go click on third grade curriculum and see, here it is. And here's the basis of what our kids are learning this semester. And that way they can be participants in the education of their kids.
If you look at the statistics, as soon as a child steps into an alternative education system, they are significantly increasing their chances of going into jail incarceration at some point. My question to you is, how are you, or what do you think you can bring to the table to reduce the pipeline from alternative schools to incarceration?
Yeah, I come from a state that there's some abject poverty, that there are socioeconomic, issues that really are a roadblock to a lot of students. And that's why I'm excited about the blueprint for Maryland's future and about giving opportunities for pre-K to all families, because I think the sooner we can start, because I think you'll agree with this, is statistically, the sooner we get kids in a learning environment, the better the opportunity is for them to grow throughout their life, and the better opportunities there are for them to have equity to succeed. We've got 11 other grades we've got to deal with. I'm a big believer in the social emotional learning piece. I believe, they talk about division. I think this brings kids together. Statistically, we've seen where the academics of kids rises as they're exposed to social emotional learning. Social justice practices have entered our school system where we're more attuned. We're taking, experts like yourself. I mean, psychologists, social workers, criminal justice people. We're learning more and more from them about what we can apply to our students to keep them out of those alternative schools, to keep them in school, to keep them learning, to keep them socialized. And I think that's couldn't be more important to bring our whole community together to attack this problem.
With your endorsement to the teachers union, but if you're elected, how would you go about serving all of the voters in collective bargaining? Because for them, they feel that it is a massive conflict of interest.
There's been a lot of discussion about endorsements and money. I mean, I think that's come to the forefront since the Citizens United decision at the Supreme Court level. I mean, there's more and more money in politics. First and foremost, I'm a parent. I was a parent. That overreaches everything. My kids, the kids I coached, the kids I work with, their best interest is number one for me. I think I mentioned earlier, the question I'll always ask on every policy is, how will this benefit our students? First and foremost. Now, I think there is some, again, miscommunication about the process of gaining an endorsement from the associations. There were 14 thorough questions that had to be answered just to get yourself in the door. Then you're interviewed, and you're not interviewed by association representatives. You're interviewed by teachers. You're interviewed by staff, custodians, vice principals. There are a lot of people on those panels that you're interviewed by. And then they don't make a decision. They make a recommendation to the constituency. Then the constituency votes on those candidates. And I think you have to get 58%. Not sure that figure, but you have to get 58% of the constituency's approval in order to be endorsed. So it's not just where like the leadership of the association says, oh, we like what those folks say, or we like what they stand for, let's endorse them. It's quite a process that I personally had no idea because I was so new to this. I mean, I had no idea what was involved. I went into it with some cynical, thoughts about, oh, you're a teacher, you're sure to get the endorsement, or, oh, you have your mother's a teacher, or whatever, but I was impressed with the thoroughness of the process.
People are saying that there is a loss of respect in the classroom. Is that the teachers are kind of getting frustrated. The students feel like they're not being heard. And I met with NAACP and we were chatting, and they were saying that the minority students are by far being penalized or punished in the school systems. And I'm talking to teachers, and teachers are talking about getting injured at work because of kids fighting and just all kinds of mayhem. How are you going to go about attacking this problem so that people feel respected and safe in the classroom?
2 months in the spring, we had, on the staffing report, we had 95 resignations, 95 licensed teacher resignations. The average tenure of those teachers was 5 years. That's scary because we're losing what you would think are the youngest, most motivated. They've just come out of school. They're motivated. They went to school specifically to be teachers, and they get in, and it's not what they thought it was going to be. They're not getting the respect that they feel like they deserve. They're not being placed in an environment that provides them the support that they need, the planning time. I'm hearing that. I mean, we focus a lot on pay, and we have to take care of that. We have to be more competitive, but there are a lot of other factors involved in our ability to retain and recruit teachers. And if we can't do that, then we're in big trouble. It's a big issue. It's not going to just be at the board level. We can't go into it and say, I have all the answers. What I was disappointed in is I felt that for years past, the school system did not partner with community organizations as they should. They were a little too much, siloed. And now they're starting to do more with the I Believe in Me and the Boys and Girls Club and the Y and City Youth Matrix. I mean, we're getting more and more of these community organizations that have the experience of working with these at-risk kids and helping them navigate the educational world that's ahead of them. So I think those partnerships are key.
Well, if you to look at, okay, so the inner city kids, they have their own issues, but that small school in a rural area, these homeschoolers, they have totally different situation problems, because some of the homeschoolers, they feel like there is really no help from the public school system, that they're just kind of on their own. They check in curriculum, but they don't feel socially connected to the school.
Frederick County has some of the most unique challenges of any county in our state. One, it's the largest geographic county in the state. We have both urban, suburban, and rural schools. So we're dealing with all kinds of different challenges, from Catoctin and Brunswick to TJ and Tuscarora to Oakdale and Linganore. I mean, all of these districts deal with different challenges, different race, different gender, different socioeconomic challenges. I talk a lot about career tech, that we need to make sure, like, you think about how difficult it is for a student in Catoctin to get to our career tech center at FCC, or even participate, say, in dual enrollment programs. Again, I was involved with the Sibyllesville parents. I've had some strong feelings frankly, about keeping that school open from the very beginning. Those parents are a model for how you get things done. That's how you advocate at the state level, the county level, at the Board of Education. You're respectful. If you were there for the initial vote, it was almost certain it was going to be unanimous. They were going to close that school. But once they started looking into it deeper, it ended up being unanimous to keep it open.
Wow.
So that's just a tremendous success story that we need to make sure, when we're talking about all of these other smaller rural and even urban schools, that we think about what their impact is on their surrounding community.
So the last question that one of the viewers asked me to ask you was this. It says, as you approach the upcoming work of the BOE, what topic do you have the most questions about? Then what data and stakeholder information will you seek to further understand the topic's position for the board and forge the best solution going forward for FCPS?
That is a great question. It's academic recovery. That should be our number one focus. I mean, we have other things that are mandated on us. The example being the blueprint for Maryland's future. That's mandated. That should be priority one. We have got to get that instituted, implemented, and that's going to do a lot of the work to help us. But our number one focus should be academic recovery of our kids. After what they went through in 2 years of the pandemic, both academically and socially, and there is no question that we fell. I mean, hey, we weren't doing great in 2019, but then we got hit by 2 years of a pandemic, and it's been devastating. And socially and academically, it's been devastating to our kids. And it put so much stress on our staff and teachers. I mean, we kept telling teachers, teachers will meet kids where they are. But when you've got teachers trying to work in class loads of 30 and 40 kids, that expectation is impossible. So we've got to invest in our schools and get our class sizes down so that teachers can build those relationships to help those kids. And if you've got 40 kids, I mean, I'm talking to teachers, first graders, 30 kids in their classes. I can't imagine 30 first graders in a class with one teacher.
What do you want to leave the viewers that see this video or videos? Why should they vote for you?
Well, if you watch this today, you know I'm really passionate about kids and education and their growth. I mean, they're the future. I mean, that's just all there is to it. They're the whole purpose. They're our purpose. And I hope you also gained that I'm committed. If you didn't know from following my campaign, when I decided to run, I retired from coaching basketball because that took a lot of time. And I knew I couldn't do both. So from that point in 2018, I started going to school board meetings, and I've been to every school board meeting and haven't missed one. I've either watched them or attended every single school board meeting for the last 3.5 years. I try to get to every committee meeting that I can because I want to know what's going on. I want to be prepared. So I'm committed. I also think I have the experience. I think I have the business experience. I think my coaching, my mentoring, working with nonprofits, I think I have the experience. And I think I can bring a lot of things to the board. Because if you look at my endorsements of individuals, there are Republicans, moderates, Democrats, across the board, educators, business people, among the spectrum. And because I think that's important, is to show that I can reach out to a lot of people. Because I believe one thing, and it's kind of funny because I went to an event last night. I went to the Delaplane Distinguished Citizen Award dinner last night, and the recipient quoted Winston Churchill, and it really hit me because I love some of these quotes. And forgive me, I'm going to read this so I get it right. But she quoted Winston Churchill, and he said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." And that struck me because I think we're all about, now what do we give back? And I hope people see that. I hope people understand that I'm a listener and that I want to listen to all perspectives. But the one question, I've talked about it several times during this, is the question I'll ask back is, how will this benefit our kids?
Very good. Hey, for all of you that did not know who Mr. Dean Rose is, now you've gotten a good understanding of who he is. And make sure that you go out and vote. Listen to the other videos that we have coming out with all of the candidates for the Board of Education 2022. You have to go out and vote, and you have to make a difference. All right? Take it easy. Bye.